Thank you very much. It's a blessing to be with you again this afternoon. We met with leaders today at 10 o'clock, and especially the leaders in Suva area. And they were so excited when I said with them that the Hawaii group and the US group are having Zoom on cell meeting lesson. They were so excited. They were just praising God that now we are extending the lesson to people that would like to learn around the world. And I'm thankful today to come and meet you guys in this Zoom class and continue our lesson together. And my prayers is that we will be blessed today with whatever the Lord has for us today. Thank you so much. Today we will go into our second lesson. And our second lesson is titled, Building the Church Through Small Group. Okay, Building the Church Through Small Group. That's our lesson today. Don't worry about the logo. That is still the old logo. I couldn't change it because my Microsoft account has expired. So I just left it that way. What is important is the teaching or the lesson that we are going to go together. Okay. It's lesson 2. Building the church through small group. Okay. The meta church strategy for small group. Okay. You will be wondering, what does meta church or meta mean? Okay. Meta church strategy for groups. Okay. The small group are suggested as a way to more successfully reach people through the church program. This, since is a change from the traditional programs of most churches, it is called a meta church strategy. Meta means change, suggesting that a church is changing its traditional approach to ministry. Okay, now we are changing our approach to growing the church in such a way that everybody becomes a part. That's what meta means, okay? Meta church model was introduced by Carl F. George in his book, Prepare Your Church for the Future. George states that the term meta church signifies both a change of mind and a change of form in the infrastructure of the church. Two visible levels are identified in the meta church that George calls the self-celebration paradigm. Okay, so that's what he shares in his book. So if you are looking for a good book on preparing your church, that's the name of the book. The name of the author is Carl F. George, Prepare Your Church for the Future. So he has two levels of identifying the meta church in the group meetings. So he says that in his book, and this is what actually he says. The two levels of meta church. The cell level and the cell level. At the cell level, a limited amount of participants learn how to care for one another. Very important, because everyone needs to be a part. Everyone needs to help together, grow together. Even Jesus himself did that. You study the life of Jesus, He just imparted himself for 3 years to 12 people, okay? And then the 12 people imparted themselves to others, okay? The responsibility of the church staff is to oversee the development of leaders at the cell level by structuring the church in this way. Pastoral care at a very intense level is available for every person, even in a very large congregation. Okay, in a small group, the person who leads will be able to touch everybody. He would be able to visit everybody in a week or two. He will be able to go and attend to people. That's why this is important, because in a big congregation, we do not know how many people are touched during that time by the one who is in leadership. Okay, and then the celebration level, the second level, the celebration level provides opportunity for corporate worship. A limitation in size is not necessary at this level because relationships have been developed at the cell level. Okay, so those are the two levels of the meta church, the church that wants to change. Okay, there is a celebration level where all the cell group members from each different cell come together and just celebrate and worship corporately. And who knows, by then it would become a church, a place where you have to worship together. Okay, but it starts off with a cell. Traditional church model, that's the one that we usually know, okay? The one we used to do before. You go to those churches to go and worship, okay? The traditional church model assumes that the pastor of skilled lay leader can give adequate pastoral care to a congregation of 50, 80, or 100 people. In fact, the church, the George disagree with. Even if it were possible in most churches, there would be more than this number who would not receive a personal ministry needed in their lives. This is why George feels that it is necessary in each cell, in each church. Okay, the benefits for small groups provide for the church. Okay, this way the small group is important. It provides for the church discovery of spiritual gift. Okay, you will be able to discover spiritual gifts in the cells. In a big and via congregation, not possible, because some people will have their gifts there, but it will be in dormant, it's not functioning. That's why the small group is encouraged, because there you will be able to identify the gifts that you have for each member, and they operate together and they share together and they proceed together and grow together. Members often hesitate to explore their spiritual gifts in large groups and may be more likely to do so in the small group. Leaders and members of small groups need to be open to finding and using spiritual gifts of others in a small group. Okay, there will be time for praying, and you recognize, oh, this woman has a gift of healing. Let her pray for that sick person. This person here has a gift of speaking in tongue. Let her interpret and all that in a small group. Okay. Also, in a small group, you develop. There is development for lay leaders. Okay, small group. You recognize somebody who can lead. And what you do, you take that person and you grow that person, because when the group begins to grow, it will be large enough to divide into two. So the one that is been groomed as a leader takes a group and starts in a new place. And the one who's leading continues with that same group. Or maybe it divides into 3 or 4 other groups, because you have found people in the group who have grown and matured, and they can lead others. Okay, so in a small group, you develop people as lay leaders. The proper view of ministry is for the pastor to be the facilitator who equips lay people to use their gifts, rather than for all the ministry efforts to flow through him or her. Normally, it can take a long time to get to know someone well enough to encourage them in developing their spiritual gifts. The small group setting, however, is conducive to this happening. Why? Because everybody knows everybody. It provides the opportunity to know one another better and to observe others as they participate in various activities. In a small group, it is very helpful. Why? Because everybody knows each other and everybody understands each other. Because if you give a member to do something, that member must be the right member to perform the duty. Because if you give it to the wrong person, it's going to affect the group. So that is why it is important that in a small group where you develop people to grow together, and people are given the right activity because they are the right people, or they have the gift and skills to be able to perform such activity because they are called to it. Okay? And then effective congregational care. This is done in the small group. That's why small group is important. There is an effective congregational care. Everybody, members have needs that they often do not, share in a large group setting. In a small group setting in which there is trust and concern, members will often share such needs. Thus, the small group can help the overall church give pastoral care in a way that the ministerial staff alone would be unable to provide. Can you see how beneficial it is to have small group? And then worship. Worship is responding to God in terms of who he is and what he has done for us. The small group setting encourages Christians to express their thanksgiving and praise to God. Okay, although you can do this in a big gathering, but more appropriately in a small group, that is where you begin everything. You start. So once you are comfortable in small group, when you go to worship in a big place where everybody comes together, you don't care anymore, because you have grown and the habit has been a part of your life as a worshiper in God. And then evangelism. Some people feel somewhat intimidated. Some people feel somewhat intimidated when attending new churches. For such individuals, the small group setting is much more inviting. In many such cases, they may even be acquainted with several of the group members involved. From the small group, it is easy to move into a larger church program. This is another writer. His annal describes biblical evangelism as a person-to-person progress of sharing the good news about forgiveness of sin and new life in Jesus. Such experiences are encouraged through the small group process. Okay, Arnold is the writer of the big book for small group. Okay, that's the name of another book. So he's the writer of that book. It's about cell growing together in cell groups. The name of the book is a big book for small group. So if you find that, you can read it, and hopefully it would help more in understanding what I am sharing. Okay. And the next is spiritual and numerical growth. It is easier to achieve this in a small group. Okay. Every area of Christian life can be experienced in the small group meeting. In a more formal church program, only one aspect, such as prayer or service, may be the focus. Visitors to a church are more likely to continue attending when they become involved in a small group setting, which usually is less threatening than the larger congregational setting. It provides the opportunity for both visitors and members to grow spiritually. Okay? So this is very, very important. In many places where you need spiritual growth and numerical growth, a small group is a most favorable way or program that the church can have. Key components of a strategy for group. Okay, key components of a strategy for groups. Number one, span of care. How far? Okay, Don Who, the writer of Life Changing, that's another book, recommends that shepherding group must be kept at 6 to 10 members to be manageable for true pastoral care. Okay, this is a recommended size in the group. Okay, when you have a small group, 6 to 10 people. The reason is because statistically, people can only take care of 1 to 10 to accommodate them in their life or look after them. As a teacher, I know that the ratio of people beyond 10 is too much to look after, especially when you have children, especially when you are looking at the different people. The only ratio is 1:10. So it is suggested that for a small group, that people grow. This is for the adults, the number of adults. Okay, I'm talking about the number of adults. The kids are not counted in the children are not counted in this, because the children can have their own group of meeting. Okay, so 6 to 10 members to be manageable for true pastoral care. The ratio suggested is a maximum of 10 people for each leader for responsible pastoral care. Okay, now what's gonna happen is, when it reaches that number, the person who is being trained as an assistant leader must also grow to that place where when you are ready to birth another group. Okay, you start off with one group, it grows, the members now is 10. Once it reaches 10, the one who was assisting should be able to lead another group. So what you can do is you split the group into two. Either it is split because of location, or it can be split because of the kind of group that is needed to be set up. Say, for example, if my group is a group because it was set up because of prayer. So when it grows, and then I split the group, the one who wants to form another group or to take another group, their group could be, their vision is to take care of the elderly. So that can be another group. Okay, so it depends on the vision of what the leader who has expanded, okay, and what they need to do. If their group is about discipling, or the group is about business, they can form another group. So that's how you grow and you divide the group. So the assistant leads another group, maybe a group of 3, maybe a group of 4 people, or because of location, these 3 people live close by in a certain area, so they can form one group, and the other group continues. Okay, the moment it splits, they form their own vision. We're going to learn that later, and they grow from there. The senior pastor should be responsible to train and shepherd the group leaders. Okay, that's what the ministry staff is all about. Just like Pastor Noli and Ma'am, who they can train the leaders to grow, and then they go and set up cell groups wherever they are. Just like what we are doing now. I have come in to train you people. Now you go and set up your cells. Once you have grown your cell to 10, it's split. Because you are the leader, you will one day be teaching this to the number of cell group leaders that you have already established. Later on, as you continue to grow, maybe you will be called to be a pastor of an area where you have 50 cell groups. And when that happens, you become a pastor. So that's what it is. We grow together, and eventually we become a big church. With this structure, the pulpit pastor would have more time to devote to preaching and prayer, which is advocate in Acts chapter 6, verse 4. That is what the pastors are called to do. Leadership development. The small group ministry depends upon identification and development of qualified leaders. In the meta-church model, leadership development is very intentional, okay? You do it. You purposefully make it happen. Small group leaders especially watch for individuals who should be encouraged to be trained as leaders. So when you are coming in a group, you begin to be alert. Who is the one the Lord has brought to come and be trained? And especially when you just have 10 people, all of them can be trained. And the next time you want to birth a group, everybody can say, ready. Yeah, I'm ready to lead a group. So you form 10 groups at one time because everybody is ready as leaders. Can you see how church growth is so fast in this kind of model? They are intentionally recruited by small group leaders. Some are ready to serve immediately, and others need opportunity for training first. After training, they serve under the active leader as an apprentice leader. This provides the opportunity to learn by doing. Okay? So you learn by doing, just like what we learned yesterday. Be with Jesus to learn from him. So you be with the leader to learn from the leader. Leadership is so important that a church should not start a small group ministry until leadership positions are in place. So we are training now. Then when we finish the whole 14 lessons, we are ready to start our group of ministries wherever we are. Amen. Amen. I am excited about what God's going to do after we complete all these lessons. Then group multiplication. Groups often resist change in membership, but this is necessary to fulfill the mandate by Christ to extend the kingdom. As a group grows to the point that division is necessary, one of the apprentice leader will be ready to lead the new group. It can be expected that subgroups will develop within small groups. Thus, subgroups are the core for a new group, which is then ready to embrace new members. Okay, this is what it means. As you come together in the small group, people in there have different gifts or different skills. Two people might have the same desire, like they would like to bring women in together because they want to teach certain women to do certain activity. They could form a group. A leader could be allocated to them. That's when you are beginning to grow. So you identify certain groups that are already in your group, or certain people in your group who can develop some kind of social group, where that social group becomes a group of Bible and learning and growing together in Christ. It can be a fishing group. It can be some kind of sports. You begin with that because they are members in your group, and you develop them and you allocate a leader who can lead them, and they go and they start. And as they grow, they will be able to identify that also in their group that has been started. But you got to remember that when you as a leader have started, you must always touch your leaders twice, at least twice during the month. You call those new leaders, come, let's go and have coffee together and meet together and pray together twice a month. Then you release them to continue with their group. The moment it begins to grow and forms another group, call that other leader to join in the time where you leaders meet together twice a month. Okay, this is important. And then relational discipleship. Okay, although one-on-one discipleship will okay, there are distinct advantages to grow discipleship. Biblical accounts seem to give examples of Jesus spending most of his teaching and conversing in groups of at least 3 disciples. With the group, there is the benefit of wisdom and discernment of others. It is possible to use one's gifts in a setting that is safe. Needs of individuals can be presented for group prayer. This is very important. In a small group, once you are able or comfortable together in growing together, you will not fear making mistakes. Why? Because now you have built a mutual understanding that you want to grow together, and making mistakes is how we grow. Okay? In a big group, people will not automatically come and give them in because they are frightened, because you do not know everybody. You might make a mistake, and later on during the week or the month, you are hearing stories of what happened. But in a small group, because it is small enough to be confidential in everything, if somebody makes mistake, because you know each other and you love each other in the Lord, you will keep everything in that place together. There is nothing taken out of that place to embarrass anybody. Okay? So relationship is very important in discipleship in small group. Then ministry coordination. The small group ministry gives an excellent structure for coordinating all ministries of the church. If ministries utilizes the small group approach, the delivery system will be the same for all. Since leaders of small groups will receive the same leadership training, where there will be unity of purpose amongst the groups. You see how important small group is? And it's easier to look after one another. Questions to answer when designing a small group ministry. Will we have a church with a small group or a church of small groups? That's the first question. The difference is whether a church chooses to make small groups the basic structure for organizing its ministry, or whether it simply has small groups as a program of department of the church. When small groups are the church, groups have become the delivery system for disciple making and caring. So that's the difference. Okay? It's not a program, but it is a place of discipling and caregiving. It is a ministry tool extended to the community, where the church is brought to the community. Next question. What will we consider an appropriate span of care for staff and volunteers? The span of care should be designed with two things in mind. Everyone must be cared for. No one caregiver should be responsible for the care of more than 10 individuals. This is important, okay? Everyone must be cared for, and the only way you can do it is not more than 10 individuals. It might go up to 11 or 12, but always keep it to that 10, okay? Because you might be you might go beyond that, then 10. You might reach 15, but it is recommended that you have 10 because you can care them properly. Next question. Is the structure that we design for our small group ministry capable of being changed as necessary? Structure is important, but it should not be rigid to the point that needs cannot be met. Structure should always serve as a means to an end and does not have value as an end in itself. Okay? This is important. In a structure, the structure that you put up must be flexible enough to accommodate what you intend to do in the group. Structure should always serve as a means to an end. Okay? It must have the capability that when you want to move this way to the right, you move to the right. When you want to move to the left, you move to the left. The reason is when the Lord begins to move in the members of the members of the group must be flexible enough to accommodate what God wants to do. What will be the roles of staff and volunteers? Staff assume the responsibility to empower lay people for more active ministries. Okay, and when talking about the staff, these are people who are under the leadership of the pastor. You have the pastors and you have members that are under him that are in the church. You call them staff members. Okay, so this is what it means. These staff members, they are responsible for training, for building the leaders in the small group. The small group will be able to provide a setting for this. Okay, that's our lesson, lesson 2. We will continue with the lesson 3.